body of Washington County. Its 15 members are elected by the citizens of the county. It establishes policy, determines budgets, and considers laws that govern the county. The Quorum Court meets on the third Thursday of each month. And now, the Washington County Quorum Court.
I'd like to call this special Quorum Court meeting to order. The purpose of this meeting is to continue working on items pertaining to the 2016 budget process. The prayer of the pledge is going to be handled by J.P. Daniel Balls. J.P. Balls.
Let us pray. Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for all that you bless us with. Give us wisdom as we go about conducting the business of our county tonight. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Carly, would you call the roll, please?
Daniel Balls.
Here.
Harvey Bowman.
Here.
Rick Cochran.
Here.
Robert Dennis.
Here.
Lisa Ecke.
Here.
Ann Harbison.
Here.
Sharon Lloyd.
Here.
Tom Lundstrom.
Here.
Eva Madison.
Here.
Sue Madison. Joe Maxwell.
Here.
Gary McHenry.
Here.
Joe Patterson.
Here.
Butch Pond.
Here.
Bill Ussery.
Here.
You have the agenda in front of you. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I move to adopt the agenda. I second it.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Who? Oh, no. No.
It's a lot.
Judge, excuse me, Judge, I think that our budget control item number 2 remains unresolved, and it bears impact on all of the budgets that we would go through. Depending on which way we would go with that may make some of these go faster, may make it go slower. I don't know, but I would like to add to the agenda the process budget control item number 2 for discussion so that we can clear that and get it done and then move on into the departmental budgets. That is my reason for voting no. Thank you.
Okay, now, I don't have that in front of me. So do you have that, Steve?
I think I took it out, Judge, actually.
Karen, do you have that in front of you? The budget control that we've been,
Point of order, I think we already adopted the agenda, so I don't know that we can deviate unless there's a new motion on the floor, so.
I didn't hear a motion. I mean, no, that passed. Talking about Justice Cochran's discussion on budget control item 2. I didn't hear a motion.
I didn't realize that a motion would be in order, given that we have already adopted the agenda, but the judge was basically looking to me for an explanation why I said no. So it would be inappropriate to make the motion, although that is my feeling. Thank you.
okay, Attorney Zaga, where do we stand? Help me here.
Judge, nothing's on the agenda is adopted as published.
So we can't do anything
No,
on that one? Okay, we will. Thank you, J.P. Cochran. First thing we have on the agenda is the Department of Emergency Management. If you'll go to page 147, 148 in your blue book, that'll get you there. John?
Can I ask a quick question? And can you all put the page numbers on the agenda next time? That would be really helpful, because I pulled the agenda and tried to do that, and I just found myself kind of fumbling all over the place.
So there is that one table of contents that's alphabetical. The best one to look at. We can include that.
Thank you.
He's talking to Cheryl.
Thank you, Judge.
Proceed.
Well, as you can see, you guys have this in front of you.
Just a moment, John. George,
Ma'am?
would you please move up here with John?
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, now proceed.
Well, as you can see in front of you, the main thing that we've done in the emergency management budget is just move some lines to be more in line with the way they're paid, the way the bills are paid. The ladies in the comptroller's office obviously go through those and pay them as the auditors would like them to. So if there are any questions about specific lines, we'll try to answer those for you. But the budget kind of speaks for itself and it's consistent with what we've had in the past.
Do you have any questions for John? Yes, J.P. Cochran.
Yes, thank you, Judge. In the 2015 approved budget, you've dropped $3,000 in your software support maintenance agreement. Is there something that's dropped off or new pricing?
Rick, would that be our WebEOC? The WebEOC is a data software that we use for disaster management, and we've transitioned to a different one, and it's a little bit less. So we felt like we'd give this one a try, and hopefully it's going to work for our agency as well as all the other agencies in the county.
Okay. Thank you, Judge.
I can fix the getter. Just a minute. I got it.
Sure.
Rick, did you get your question answered?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Judge.
J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Judge. I was curious about the increase in the other professional services, 3,009.
3,000?
Yeah, it went up by 5,000 from last year, and it doesn't look like you've always
that's where,
spent it.
And I want to make sure I'm going to go into the weeds. I'm going to have these guys help
That's fine,
me.
sure.
This is where we pay Smith two-way for repairs made to the radio system, and
Okay.
we've found out that we're more in line with where the actual bills were being paid out of. So that's why we increased it there, because when we didn't have those dollars in there before, we've found out now that's where they're going to come out of, so we just moved the monies from where it was before into that line, so it will come out of there.
Well, now that has me confused. That's because there's a separate cell phone pager radio line.
Well, that's for actual product. The repairs on the equipment is what comes out on the professional services.
Okay.
Yeah.
My gosh, what are we repairing for $45,000?
Well, we've got 12 tower sites in the county.
Oh, that, okay,
Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
I thought you
It's
meant
the entire
cell
countywide radio
phones.
system. No.
I was
Yeah.
like, what?
It's the big project, yeah.
That's a lot of
Yeah, and it
iPhones.
takes care of police, fire, EMS, some road radios, Washington Water Authority. It's the full-blown countywide radio system.
And then what's in the 3,022 cell phone? That's
That's
bills?
going to be satellite phone for the Emergency Operations Center. Daryl, make sure I'm right. Wi-Fi, our 3 cell phones, and that should take care of those things. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
J.P.
Thank you.
Maxwell. J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Madam Judge. I'm curious about the food line item that's gone from 1,000 to 1,500. Is that some kind of emergency water bottles or?
Well, it does include, that's a very good point, ma'am. It includes emergency water, meals ready to eat, MREs, and then we have 2 events each year that are 24 hours long. We bring people in, and they operate 24 hours solid, and we provide food for that exercise and training. Yes, ma'am.
It's a training expense?
Yes, that's correct, yes.
Okay, but the other food is just for emergencies?
Yes, that's correct, yes.
Okay, and tires and tubes doubled?
Yeah, we didn't have to use them. We went without them for a year. We didn't have to replace them in that year, but we have 2 front truck tires for the big truck, one of the big trucks we have, and then the other cars are coming due. So we know in this year we'll do those. Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I had one breakdown on us on the way back from Little Rock the other day with our new employee, which was kind of frustrating for us. And how do you plan for those things? You just know they're going to happen, and so that's what the anticipated expense is.
Is software support maintenance agreement something that shifted into another line item? It went down $3,000?
No, that's what Mr. Cochran just asked us about.
Okay.
And that was the lowering of a cost of a product that we're using. It's less than the one we were previously using.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Judge.
Mr. Lundstrom.
Judge, I'm going to move that we pass this budget on. It's $1,000 less than it was in 2015. And John explained it to me, and I was very happy with his explanations, just like he's done the rest of the crew. So I'm going to move that we pass this.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Carly, would you call the roll, please?
Ann Harbison?
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd?
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom?
Yes.
Eva Madison?
Yes.
Sue Madison?
Yes.
Joe Maxwell?
Yes.
Gary McHenry? Joe Patterson? Butch Pond?
Yes.
Bill Ussery?
Yes.
Daniel Balls?
Yes.
Harvey Bowman?
Yes.
Rick Cochran?
Yes.
Robert Dennis?
Yes.
Lisa Ecke?
Okay, now John has another budget, which is Fund 1,000. If you'll go to page 201 and 202. And John, if you will proceed, please.
This is the budget for 911 operations. 911 operations, pardon me, is a budget for all the infrastructure, phone lines, computers, routers, trunk lines, all the public safety network for 911 for the entire county. We have 5 PSAPs, public safety answering points, where the calls from 911 are answered. This takes care of all that equipment. Those PSAPs are also in our dispatch centers at the Sheriff's Office, Springdale PD, Fayetteville PD, Central EMS, and State Police Troop L. And the nice thing about that is they take care of the staffing and we take care of the infrastructure. So it's a partnership. It's worked very, very well for many, many, many years. This year we're in a transition, which we have about every 5 years, to upgrade that equipment. It's at end of life. We have the monies in the budget to do so. That's its own fund, and it's funded from tax fees on the phone bills, wireless and landline. So it's very specific what it can be used for, and that fund continues each year. It just, whatever it brings in, and what we expend is justified here. So if there's any questions regarding 911, I'll try to answer those for you.
J.P. Cochran.
Thank you, Judge. The maintenance and service contracts, we haven't had any expenditures for 2015.
Maintenance and service contracts.
That is
And that'll probably be the one where
2024.
generally we already would have bought or paid our annual fee for the year to AT&T.
Right.
We have not done that this year because it's the upgrade year, but we're just about to the point to do that. So that one's going to go down about $180,000 if that's the right line item. I should have brought my glasses. What number was that? Was that right, Rick?
2024.
2024.
We have $60,000 approved for the current year.
Oh, no, that's
and
not the right
requested.
one. That's where we pay our recorder maintenance out of.
Right.
And we have just done that, and we've got some more to pay.
Okay.
And that's where we take all the 911 calls, go to those centers, and we record every dial tone,
Right.
start to finish. And those recorder maintenance programs become a little bit more as the recorders get older. The maintenance costs a little bit more, but that's what that will be.
Right.
Yes.
So what will you say you're about to pay it? You already know the bill?
Daryl, we got that bill from Voice Products? And one's from Fayetteville. Fayetteville just bought a recorder on their own, and we're going to take care of the maintenance on it as we do the others, which we always take care of theirs. So they're just about to get us the information on that, so we'll know exactly what it is. But we told them to keep it for certain in line with what we had been paying before, and we didn't want to pay more.
Right.
But we understood they had a need to change their recorder. We didn't want to hold that up because, again, it is a dispatch center as well, and it's a partnership. And so we just said we want to stay in line with what we've done in the past. And they said they'd make certain that happened. Even if it was more, they would not expect more from us. So I thought that was good on their part. Everybody kind of comes out ahead that way.
And line 3073, that's where you're talking about your upgrade on your end of life?
Yes, that may be right. 3073, that sounds like it's higher in the budget. Yes, that's the one. I apologize, Rick. Yep.
Right. I thought you were flipping them around on me. That's okay. Thank you, Judge.
J.P. Eckey.
Thank you, Madam Judge. You've mentioned that you have a revenue fund from the 911 fees that are collected from landlines and cell phones,
Yes,
et cetera.
ma'am.
And it rolls over
Yes.
every year, or does it go into general at
No,
any
ma'am,
time?
it's totally separate from general. It's its own fund. That's this one.
That's that one. Does the county just receive a percentage of that, and how is it split with the cities, or do we receive 100%
County
of
receives
it?
100% of that. It
Okay.
goes into this fund, and then we only take out what's needed for the budget, and the remaining dollars stay in the fund. And they do that so that when we have a small reserve like we do now, when we get ready to do this upgrade, it pays for the entire upgrade. In fact, we're actually going to be getting some dollars back from the state as well to help, because this is the first time the upgrade's been as expensive as it's going to be, because it's called Next Gen 911. It's the first time we've ever dealt with this. And so we just saw Benton County go through it. Like I say, we're right on the brink of doing it ourselves, but thankfully the fund should take care of all that.
So your department is self-sustaining with this fund?
With this fund, that is correct, yes, ma'am. And I want to make a note on the emergency management, the other hat that we just went over a moment ago. I forget sometimes to say this. I think the budget was $283. Don't make me lie to you. I don't have it out right now. But we get an emergency management program grant back to the general fund, because the emergency management dollars do come out of the general fund. And out of that 283, we'll get back, because of tracking of paperwork and work, required things that the state and federal government makes us do, we're going to get back about 70,000. So of the 283, technically, the county's going to only be out about 210. So for our overall emergency management budget, the general fund sees back each year after that a reimbursement, and that one's going to be about 70,000. So really, it's nice because you approve 283, but the county's really only out the 210, if you will. So I forget sometimes to point that out. It's a good thing we partner and get from the state and federal government.
It's nice to hear that the state is funding something that we don't have to. Thank you.
Yeah, they're slow. It's behind, but they do pay it. Yes.
Do they do that quarterly at the end of the year?
It is quarterly tracked. That's correct. Yes. So it comes in the 4 increments. That's correct. Yes.
J.P. Lloyd.
Thank you, Judge. On line item 3022, and you've more than doubled there with the 2015 of the 2,300, and now you've gone up to 5,000. Would you just give an explanation on that?
Daryl, help me out.
2,300 is for 6 months. I'm sorry. The actual expenditures for 2015 is through June. That's 6 months. So you can pretty much double whatever is there in the actuals.
Okay, and it says cell phone, pager, radio. Is that for individuals in the department?
That will be some radios related to 911. That will be the satellite phones in each of the 4 dispatch centers as a last mile, if you will. We fund each center to have a non-terrestrial based line of communication between one another.
So these aren't individual cell phones,
no,
pagers, radios?
I may have misled you a moment ago. Daryl's, does it come out of that one? Yeah, Rick and I come out of emergency management. Daryl's comes out of this one because he's in the 911 side of the house. So when I said earlier all 3 of those came out of that other one, one of them actually comes out of here. Yeah.
A personal?
One of the satellite phones. Well,
no.
It's not personal, it's work.
The work, okay.
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
That was my question.
Yeah, no, there's no personal phones in the mix. It's all
right.
work related, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
J.P. Bowman.
Thank you, Judge. I guess line item 3073,
yes.
Is that an annual lease price, or is that a one-time deal, or what's the deal on that? That's a lot of money.
It's annual.
It's annual.
It's annual maintenance of the system as well as a one-time fee every year. We generally do it in January. It's a lease product governed by the Public Service Commission.
Right. We do that with AT&T.
That's correct,
And
yes.
We do it every 5 years. And y'all approve it every 5 years, just like short-term financing.
Yep.
So this will be a fee that we're going to be expected to pay annually then?
Yes, and have been for since we've had 911. That's correct.
And it's gone up from $349 up to $550, $533.
No, in that is also the monthly costs from AT&T that we have as well, and they run just under $20,000.
Okay, so that's another line item transfer to put it in the same category. Is that the idea there?
No, we just increased it this time because we know we're actually going to make the purchase.
Okay.
Yes, and then annually it's around $100,000, Daryl, in January.
Yeah,
it's going to be a little higher this time. Yeah.
And it did go up, and we do expect it to be higher for the next 5 years.
Yes, and we don't have any control over that part. That's,
okay. Now you said you said a purchase, but this says a lease here beside the equipment.
It is actually a lease. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and it's the one that's governed by the Public Service Commission. Yes. Yep.
But in future years, we'll be looking at that same 533 or something in that vicinity on an annual ongoing cost.
5 years from now, you'll look at another lump sum that's large.
Okay.
But annually, you'll only have the one-time fee in January, and then roughly the $20,000 per month.
Mm-hmm.
So it will, after the initial purchase, the remaining 4 years will go down somewhat.
Okay.
Yes.
So our after 2016, our fee will drop back to $100,000, or
No, it won't be that low. No, it'll be roughly, Cheryl, 220.
120?
And then it'll be in the mid threes.
Okay.
To high threes.
Okay.
Yep. And we haven't gotten the final numbers in from those folks, so they're still
Okay.
refining
All right.
that number. So I kind of hate to try to.
And is this communication equipment again?
It is. It's the 911 system. It's
Okay.
the actual
Okay.
answering devices and the phone
Okay.
lines,
Great.
and it's the software. And that's something I think you all will want to know. Each one of the public safety answering points at each console or desk for the call taker has the equipment. So we're probably buying 40 seats of it throughout the entire county because we can't just put it at one location and then at that location at one desk, every person in that center that takes those calls and talks on the radio has to have the equipment in front of them.
Okay,
So it's
well,
a
thank you.
big project.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
J.P. Harbison.
But this is not coming out of general fund. This
No,
is
ma'am.
coming out of the 911
That's
fund,
correct. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so when we're talking about funding, this is kind of a little separate thing
It is, yes.
from the general fund.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you.
Do I have a motion to adopt this budget?
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the,
Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Carly, would you call the roll, please?
Ann Harbison. Sharon Lloyd.
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom. Eva Madison. Sue Madison. Joel Maxwell. Gary McHenry. Joe Patterson. Butch Pond. Bill Ussery. Daniel Balls. Harvey Bowman. Rick Cochran. Robert Dennis. Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Thank you, John.
Okay, thank you all.
Have fun at the ball game.
Thank you, ma'am.
Next one on your agenda is county judge. That will be 77 and 78. And Mr. Butler is going to present that budget for us. It's on.
Yeah, I couldn't remember whether reading it on or off.
77, 78. Yes, ma'am. Okay, very good.
Statement of operations. Okay. Yeah, there's two budgets. The first one is the regular budget, and then there's the emergency budget, which is pretty short. Anyway, this is the county judge's budget. This includes the county judge, myself, Karen, Carly, and Betty, who sits out front in terms of personnel and related costs such as that. Last year, the approved budget was $388,025. This year, the amount is $373,229. Some line items have gone up and some of them gone down. So I'd be happy to take any questions.
J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Judge. The only question I had is that I know that the county judge's office has some vehicles, but I don't see any vehicle expenses. So.
Her vehicle, I'm not driving my vehicle, the Dan's old vehicle. It's parked at the road department. Sheriff said they use it as a pool vehicle. They use it just
saving yourself some trouble, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Sorry. I had to say it.
You're absolutely right. You know, when I first became full-time, there was people getting cell phones, and there was all this controversy about how they were going to be taxed. I said, Never mind. Never mind. Yeah, never mind. So, yeah, that one vehicle judges is in the road department.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what about the chief of staff vehicle? Even though it's parked, where does it come out of?
The staff, I'm not sure if Dan's at one time came part out of this and part out of road, or if it all came out of road. Do you recall, Cheryl?
I think at the beginning it was part of road. It all came out of road.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm looking back at, 2014 and 2015, I don't see anything in there about vehicles. And
it was all road.
I see something in 2013 and nothing in 2012.
Okay, and then the dues and memberships line item, that's the Association of Counties.
Correct.
It comes out of this
Correct.
budget. Okay. Well, it's hard to deny a budget that's gone down this much, so I would move to pass the county judge's budget.
Have a motion. We'll get in discussion. We have a motion and a second. J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Madam Judge. I'm just curious what other sundry insurance is that went from $1,000 to $2,200.
Well, I asked that same question myself, because I wanted to be sure. That consisted of, we bought fiduciary insurance, and you weren't on the Quorum Court at the time, but if you remember, we had to buy fiduciary insurance for our deferred compensation plan, which we've wound down, except we're still holding some assets. We can't find some of the people. We also realized and reviewing some things, we're also a fiduciary on the health insurance plan. And so we needed fiduciary coverage. And so this is, that other sundry is a combination, when we looked at the bills, of the fiduciary insurance, and that covers everybody in the county, including you guys, including you. Yeah, you're included in that. And also, we buy errors and omissions throughout the county for anybody who has a notary. We buy errors and omissions.
Well, why did it go up?
Well, the reason it went up is it didn't actually go up. It either, we were trying to figure out what happened on that, and either Dan cut it down before, last year he said, everybody go back and do your 3 years average and do that. And either Dan cut it down, not realizing that we still had those fixed costs, or it got cut again at the Quorum court level when it was finally passed. But the insurance kind of is what it is.
So we've spent more than $1,000 this year.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
We spent more than what was originally budgeted.
Okay. And meals and lodging, that is exclusively for travel, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? J.P. Ussery.
I'm going to try to go through and point this out each time, but there's a significant savings on the telephone and the fax. And I think that should be noted, that's a, we've done something right there, and we're very appreciative for that. Thank you.
That sounds good. I like to have somebody tell me I did something right. Carly, would you call the roll, please? Do we want to go ahead and pass this one before we do this next one with the emergency budget, or do we want to take one on one? Okay, let's do a roll call.
Can we just do a voice vote on some of these, since they're simple motions? I don't know, I just was
I don't see any reason we can't do.
Judge, you can. Now, it would be the privilege of the court to ask for a record one-by-one vote if they want one. But if a voice vote is the pleasure of the court and it's not particularly controversial, that could save us all a lot of time.
Do I have a motion to accept a voice vote?
Make a motion to accept.
Do I have a second? Any discussion? Will be a voice vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Okay, George, let's go to the next,
So your emergency budget, which is the $75,000.
That's page 151.
Right. And that it can only get expended when an emergency is declared by the judge and/or the governor.
J.P. Cochran, did you have your hand up?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, thank you, Judge.
You're recognized.
Yes, this is the only budget that we have in the county that has always turned the money back. We've been really lucky. Since I joined the court, this was something we started. We had the fiasco in Cincinnati that really wrecked the department's budgets, both the sheriff's department and the road department, for all the work they had to do, and that's why we implemented this. And I'm 100% behind this. Hope we never use it. It's a good insurance plan, gives the judge capital for immediate response, and we don't have to have a quick meeting. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, J.P. Cochran. At least I can rent a potty if I have to, which I didn't have the money to do that the last time. J.P. Lloyd.
I make a motion that we pass the emergency budget.
I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. So moved. The next thing we have on the agenda is, yes, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I had a question. Part of it was answered by.
I'm sorry, I missed.
That's okay. J.P. Cochran. This emergency fund, I wasn't paying attention to how much Cincinnati cost the county. And is this amount adequate to handle a similar disaster?
I don't remember how much Cincinnati cost us, but I mean, this was the figure that was arrived at post-Cincinnati when everybody was having to kind of pull from different budgets to pay for stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And Cincinnati was in 2012, I think, if I'm not mistaken, or 2013.
Nine or 11.
It was 11. It was 11. I just,
But,
2011.
there was a lot of study and deliberation by the court at this time about how much needed to be set aside. And it was, the consensus at that time was that this would have covered Cincinnati.
So this would have covered Cincinnati.
Right.
Was it ever discussed that perhaps to have 3 years in reserves having that? And instead of rolling over after
I
so many
don't
years?
recall there being a specific discussion about that, whether or not y'all wanted to build up a reserve in that. It's possible that there was, but I don't recall it.
Okay.
And so here's what I'm thinking is that, we hope the 75,000 covers, and if it doesn't, that we'd have to dip into our unappropriated reserves. But y'all that's the pleasure of the court if y'all want to, create a reserve.
Maybe we can have a discussion on that later, but I just wanted some background on
fine.
this. Thank you, Madam Judge.
I know we've already had a vote, but I'm going to go ahead and recognize J.P. Madison.
Part of the rationale was this was an amount that would get the judge through an emergency, because we wouldn't be able to call a quorum court meeting in an emergency situation to appropriate funds. So I don't know that we anticipated that this would cover the cost of every or all emergencies. It was just so that she could rent porta potties and do the things she needed to do immediately, and then if we needed to call a meeting to appropriate additional funds, we would do that. It was just sort of the beginning to get through the true emergency crunch of it.
But that wasn't the total. Sorry, that wasn't the cost of Cincinnati, and that's why that was that much.
No, yeah,
okay.
He was right. It was going to get us to that initial crunch.
Okay.
We never know what the extent of the emergency is going to be. As J.P. Cochran said, we hope we never have to have any of it.
That's right.
But after we've watched what's happened to South Carolina and some of the other states, we have to be semi-prepared, and then y'all can always come back if we have to have more, but this will at least get us started. So I do appreciate all of you for considering us. Thank you very much. Okay, the next thing we have on is the Veteran Service. That's going to be, hang on just a moment. That's going to be 155 and 156. Hi, Wayne.
Hi. For all that you don't know, I'm Wayne Haynes, Veteran Service Officer for Washington County. Our budget, I just found out today I need to drop two of the line item numbers because I found out that I no longer have to pay for the fax line, so I need to drop that from $960 to $500.
What number is that? What line item is that?
I'm sorry, it's 3020.
Oh, it's blank. We didn't put any, there was nothing in that for 2016. So you're okay on that?
Okay.
Okay. So you don't want to drop your budget because there was nothing built into that?
Well, I had requested 960 for that.
That's what you had for 15.
I think
And Cheryl must have been working.
That was taken out. I think we had some emails back and forth because we didn't pay that, so that was taken out.
Okay, I'm not going to have to pay for any telephone fax. Okay, I'm sorry.
Hey, that's good.
That's great.
Thank you on that one.
No, and then I talked to Jennifer in your office today, and she said she thought this line item 3052 was a mistake for the 325, the fire and
Okay, so you need to go back.
Yeah, she's doing research. She told me at 4:30 this afternoon, but she says 100 will be more than plenty for that. So.
Because in 2014 you paid $325.
Yeah, and she says she thinks that was a mistake.
Okay, so you want to change that to?
I want to change that to 100. Okay, now maybe we've got everything else is pretty much about the same as last year.
Cheryl, what did you just change to 100?
Line item 3052, the fire and extended coverage. In 2014, when he paid the $323.94, we think Jennifer thinks that might have been a mistake, so he wants to change that back to the $100.
So that's your bottom line, the fire and extended coverage.
Yes.
So it would reduce the budget you're looking at by $225.
J.P. Cochran.
Move to pass 0800 budget with the amended.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of Wayne's budget, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. I want to thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
I'm glad that we could provide you a place on South Campus. I think it's really been an asset to our veterans. And I know you're down there a lot by yourself and your secretary, but we just want you to know how much we appreciate you.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you all.
I agree. I'm a veteran fan, and I think sometimes they get thrown under the bus, and we should always uphold them and our grandparents. So, Wayne, thank you for all that you do.
Thank you. The next thing we have is number 5, Archives and Record Management. Tony? Let's see, number 5 is going to be, no, I'm sorry, it's not 5, it's 6. I'm sorry, say it again. 103 and 104, yes. Tony?
Hey.
Proceed.
I'm Tony Wapple, head of the Archives Records Management Department. Some of y'all haven't met yet, but that's who I am. And my budget's relatively flat from last year. It's about $1,000 less, I think, than last year. And also, I inadvertently put in money for my telephone fax line also. That needs to be a zero.
And what is the number on that line item?
3020.
3020, okay.
Yes. I was averaging all my previous year's expenses, and I just
So in place of in place of 425, it should be zero.
Yes.
Okay, very good.
And yeah. So
Any questions for Tony? J.P. Cochran?
Move to pass Budget 0119 with
Have a
amendment.
motion. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you, Tony.
Thanks.
Number 7, planning. Let's see here. Okay. 97 and 98. So, Miss Juliet, you're recognized.
My overall budget is slightly less than last year. Some line items are more, some are less. I tried to move around money to reflect how we spend it more accurately. And I did add some money where I felt like we needed more money. And I'll be happy to talk to you about any of those questions that you have.
J.P. Cochran?
Thank you, Juliet. Thank you, Judge. Let's talk about your training. What's your training plans for this year? You've increased a little bit, so what are we doing?
Well, I found over the years that it's very beneficial for us to have training. There's specifically several conferences that we go to, floodplain management and the American Planning Association Conference, which is a national conference, and it's one of the more expensive conferences that we go to, but I feel like we get a whole lot of benefit of going to it because in Washington County, as you know, is one of the few counties in Arkansas that has robust planning. And so we don't have a lot to pull from on the state level. We work with Pulaski County and Benton County, and in many ways we're even more advanced than they are. So it's very helpful to talk to people on a national level that are doing what we're doing and learn from them. So the national conference is very beneficial. And I've also found that it's even more beneficial to us if we're able to send at least 2 people. That way I feel like we get more bang for our buck. We can attend more sessions. You know, there are hundreds of sessions at this conference. Usually, depending on the genders, you can double up on, sleeping arrangements and things like that. And also feel like it's really good for the employees to be at those conferences together and have time to speak with each other about the things that they're learning and, just bounce ideas around. And it's also, I think it's very good for employee morale. And to be able to attend those things, it gives you a refreshed look at what you're trying to do. I think helps people stay on goal for an overall mission of what we're trying to accomplish and things like that. In the past, we've only sent one person. This year, I had a little bit of extra money because I had a drop in some software cost, and so I was able to use that money to try to send multiple people, and it really worked out very well, and I think it's very beneficial. And so that's why I'd like to ask for more money.
Thank you.
J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Ritchie, I just have two questions. The first is you've seen an increase in 2009, the computer and IT equipment, so you must have plans to buy something.
Yeah, if you look back, so it's more reflective, I think, of the general cost. We've had to upgrade, I usually try to upgrade 2 computers a year, okay? And that worked pretty well for a while. The cost of computers have gone up somewhat, so the money that I'd generally allotted for it wasn't covering anymore, so that's part of it. And then secondly, also over the past 2 years, I had to replace more than that because we needed basically a more robust computer to handle some of our mapping system. And we have 4 people in our office that share the mapping capabilities. And kind of the standard computer wasn't cutting it. And I couldn't tell you exactly why. It has to do with memory and some other things. And so to eliminate some of the lag we were having with that, I replaced more equipment than I had in general. So you'll see like there was a $7,800 expenditure last year. So I really put some money into doing that. But I think to maintain what I need to do, which is to replace 2 a year to keep everybody up to speed. I have 6 different, computers. That keeps everybody from getting more than 3 years old. And I need around $4,000 a year.
Okay. My next question is about the dues and memberships, 3090.
Yes.
I think I know. Well, we've heard this before, but please remind me what that is.
Okay, yeah. So you saw a big jump, I think, in 2015. So the Northwest Arkansas Regional Planning Commission, we have membership dues that the whole county pays. It's not just our office. But it used to come out of a different fund. I think it actually used to come out of the purchasing budget because of several kind of countywide subscriptions used to. And then last year they decided to move those around to reflect kind of more accurately what they were funding. And so that's where a majority of that is. It is, let's see, I wrote down the number, $26,358.50. And that cost is based on the census, our census numbers, how much the county pays. But all the cities pay in as well in the 2-county area.
Right, thank you.
The next, J.P. Lloyd.
Thank you, Judge. I know you, and my first question had been on the training and education. So looking back, 3094, meals and lodging, is that to do with when you go to the conventions? And
yes.
And I mean, I like it that you've stayed the same there, but I was a little concerned with the extra 2,000, and you explained. How many people are going to get to go to training this year?
Well, we do various trainings for everyone in our office, which is, it's 5 full-time employees. But then probably the Planning Association Conference would only be 2 or 3 of us.
Okay.
Just depending on how much money we have and what the cost. The costs vary. It's in a different major city every year. And like last year it was in Atlanta and it was very affordable. Just plane tickets and stuff were much cheaper. And then this year it was in Seattle. You're talking about double price on plane tickets. And so it just kind of varies depending on how much it's going to cost.
Okay. And so then also on 3030 with the travel?
Yes.
I mean, I understand it's only $100, but is that all tied in with meals and lodging and training and education? I mean, is that all
I'd have to
sort
look
of the same?
Yeah, I think that's where we usually pull like travel insurance out of. So when we buy tickets, if I'm buying a $800 ticket on the county's dollar, I usually like to buy the $20 travel insurance in case somebody gets sick.
So you take it out of that line item, 3030?
I think it's basically travel. Yeah, let me see what we've.
Well, I mean, I saw it has doubled.
It was, travel insurance and parking at X&A. $20 parking and $96 for travel insurance.
Okay, thank you.
J.P. Ecke.
Thank you, Madam Judge. I'm glad to hear that you're sending at least 2 people to a conference because I believe there's safety in numbers. And I think for protection nowadays, having just one person going to a conference by themselves, a national conference, even though it's there, you can be a little vulnerable. And knowing that you're sending 2 people, I'm very comfortable, and I feel better that you're doing this. And these are national conferences, some of them, that you're going to, and as much training as you can get, and continue to have Washington County lead the way in this state, in your department. I'm very proud of that.
Thank you.
And I support what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
J.P. Bowman.
Thank you, Judge. J.P. Madison beat me to the question on the dues. She answered, already got it resolved. Thank you.
J.P. Dennis.
Well, mine is more of a compliment. Congratulations on no overtime, and your salary's very good shape. So no raises are entered in a department. Those come from us later.
That's correct.
Okay. Well, good job on that. I just wanted to point that out because we had some that came in and paid out quite a bit of overtime. So I'm glad to see that at nothing.
Thank you.
Can we get a motion to?
We don't have a motion, but
I make a motion, we pass this.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
Could I add one thing?
Yes, please, go ahead.
I will say that I know that you're looking at the overall budget too, and I would ask that if you're unwilling or unable to fund our request, and when it comes down to the decision time, I would ask that you please allow us to do the cutting. Last year, I feel like the way the line item structures is, and I realize that that's regulated by the state, but sometimes I think things are cut in good faith, but there are things that that we can't live without, and I would like to be able to make the decisions about what can be prioritized or what needs to go if something has to happen. I would appreciate that.
Okay, now we're going to just do it, Carly. No, let's go ahead and do it. All in favor of Juliet's budget, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you, Juliet.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to go to Environmental Affairs, which is 153, 154. Hi, Sophie.
Hello.
You're recognized.
Thank you. So overall, my budget was an increase of $10,874 from the 2015 budget. There are 5 line items that have increased. The majority of them stayed the same, or I was able to decrease them. So those 5 were paints and metals. We have an old truck that needs some repairs and repainted. Travel, just a slight increase on travel, slight increase on other sundry insurance, and then other professional services and dues and memberships. Actually, dues and memberships only increased by 10. So if anyone has any questions, or if you'd like more details about dues and memberships and other professional services, I can provide that. Okay, actually, let me just hand this out.
J.P. Cochran.
Thank you, Judge. Well, go ahead and hand those out.
Okay.
That way everybody can be looking at them. Okay, everybody's going to be looking at line 3009. That's a big bump.
Yes.
So that's what we really need to hear from you first.
Okay.
And that's what this sheet is about.
3009 is on one side, 3090 is on the other. So 3009 is what has the biggest increase, and that's due to the fee that was implemented this year for the cathode ray tube TVs and computer monitors to be recycled. So we are looking for another option, but as of now, we do not have another option. So we, budgeted in $30,214, and that's based on sending out 8 loads at an average price of $3,760 per load. That's based on what we've been through this year, starting in April to now.
Right. Now, we do have a revenue stream on those CRTs. When a person disposes of one and brings it to you, remind us what that cost is to the
That's
public.
$10 for the
$10.
CRTs.
Okay. Does that obviously doesn't cover it?
No.
What would, and I know they weigh different amounts, and you're going on weight, correct?
Right.
Okay.
So they are.
What do we need to do? I know you can't probably take it all the way to cover it all, but where would be a price that's going to keep people returning them to you and not throwing them in the trash? Because I realize that last year you went from 5 to 10. Did you see any decrease in the folks bringing them in, do they continue to come in at about the
They
same rate?
continue to come in. It amazes me that we still get them. Now, part of that could be that Fayetteville is doing a special where they have vouchers that cover up to, a resident of Fayetteville can get up to 5 vouchers, and they're $5 value. So it could be that one reason we're not seeing a decrease is that Fayetteville residents can continue to bring things in and not have to pay that fee. We're continuing to see a lot of CRTs. We're continuing to have the majority of our loads be CRTs by weight.
Okay. I would suggest you go ahead and bring it up a little bit more. Test the water. If you see them turn back, maybe you can come back down a little bit. But, I realize that we're budgeting $429,733, and there is some money coming back against that. Do you know what the total estimate for next year will be as far as
For that,
is that
yeah,
on the other
it's
side?
it's $30,214. And that's with staying with the same recycler that we're currently using.
No, I'm not saying how much we expend. How much will the citizens pay? What will be our money coming in for all the services you're providing? I realize it won't cover your whole budget.
You mean the revenues that we're
Right.
getting in?
Right.
Well, for electronics, for this year, we've brought in $12,850, and then I just billed Fayetteville $3,940. So we've brought in $16,790 just for electronics, and that's from January through now for electronics only.
All right. Thank you.
J.P. Dennis, did you have your hand up? No. Okay. J.P. Maxwell.
Thank you, Judge. I know CRTs are obviously phasing out. Do you have an anticipated kind of time frame when this won't be a dumpster problem or a salvage problem?
I don't. Honestly, I'm surprised that we still get in as many as we do. It's a problem nationwide, though. It's not something that we're the only ones facing. I went to a conference recently, and that was one of the topics was dealing with CRTs. So I don't know when this is going to stop because they're not being manufactured anymore. So you would think that we would see a decrease. I can't give you a year on when they would start going down.
You know about when they quit producing those?
No, a few years ago. I'm not sure exact date.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Yes, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Judge. I know this is something small, but why did we not have internet connection last year, but then this year we have the $490? It's on line item 3023.
So that's for a MiFi for our enforcement officer, so that when he is out doing inspections and following up on illegal dumps, that he can connect into our database, and that way he can just directly type into it, connect with his laptop. So the idea is to make him more
like
efficient.
a hotspot type thing?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And the reason I budgeted that in the wrong line item last year, so I had to do a line item transfer because I didn't realize which line item it came out of.
Do I have a motion? I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor? In favor, opposed, same sign? Okay, thank you very much, Sophie. Next thing we have is HR, which is going to be 107 and 108. You're on, Lindsay.
All right. I'd like to start off by saying I feel like we had a very successful year. We did see some cost savings in some areas. We also saw some projects that kind of came to a close or we're not pursuing any farther action in those areas. And so we are able to reduce our budget for next year. Our request is down $13,893. There's been a few line items that I did put some increases in. I kind of alluded to them earlier in the year. It's training. This year we were in an unfortunate situation where we had enough money allocated to cover a seminar registration, but my travel was cut, my mileage was cut, my foods and lodging was cut. And so ultimately I couldn't attend the conferences because everything else was cut. And so I believe that one of the things this court is really looking toward is coming up with some innovative solutions to some of our problems. And I don't believe reducing education is the means of accomplishing that. And so I am looking at, it's not a huge increase, but slightly increasing my training and including some meals and lodging so that we can attend conferences. Overall, I have 4 people in my office that would be receiving training next year, not at the same conference, but over 3 different conferences. They would be getting some valuable education that hopefully can help us better perform our jobs and come up with better ideas. I want to point out, we were able to reduce some of our contracts just by renegotiating them. Copiers were huge this year. We were able to cut $2,400 out of our budget by just negotiating the contract we had with the current company. And so we have tried to take on some measures. My dues, memberships, and subscriptions line item, I have a membership to Arkansas SHRM, National SHRM. Eva from JP Madison is familiar with that. Also, Northwest Arkansas Human Resources Associations. We gain a lot of information and training at a very minimal expense, $15 to $20 a month. We get an hour and a half of training, so it's a great way for us to stay current. I have cut that budget by $3,100 this year, and I want to point that out specifically because an HR law portal that we have to gain information, we were able to negotiate a 3-year contract on that and save some money, but it will come up for renewal in 3 years. And so I want to point that out and say, yes, we have a savings. We're going to see some savings over the next 2 years, but in 3 years, I'm going to ask for that to be put back into the budget. So that's just kind of an overview. I'll take any specific questions that you might have.
JP Madison.
That, what was that line item that you were talking about for the software? Was it dues and membership?
Dues and $3,090. Yes, it's a portal into a vast amount of HR resources. So it's not necessarily a software; it's actually a database of information that we can tap into.
So, because that one's gone down significantly, but are you not paying for a SHRM membership?
We are.
With that $875 too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I was getting them confused. What's the reason for the decrease on 3102? I'm just curious. The software support maintenance agreement, the last one.
That mostly SunGuard. We actually had a few projects. The very first of the year, we had a project that hung over from 2014, and they were completing some work on it. It's about $9,000 project. It's completed as far as they're going to be able to complete it at this time, so we're not asking for renewal on that money.
Huh. Okay, good. Since you're here, I wanted to ask you, we have had somebody else mentioned it tonight about overtime expenses.
Yes.
And having done some research for a client today on comp time policies.
Yes.
We have a comp time policy.
Yes.
In your experience, is it sort of department specific as to whether we do that? Because I was dealing with an entity today that it's a charter school, and although most people would think they were like a public school in terms of that kind of benefit, they're not included in the definition.
Right.
Because they're not a political subdivision of a state. And so I realized what a bonus it is to be able to do comp time. And I just wondered why we didn't use it more to try to eliminate overtime costs.
Actually, it's really came down to whether or not the Quorum Court decided to fund overtime within a particular budget. Many of the departments don't have overtime, and we talked about the planning department earlier, the HR department. We solely use comp time, and our employees actually truly really like it. There's some departments, I believe, that have felt like it was not an option for them, maybe taking that time off. They didn't feel like they had the personnel resources that they could do without those people for that day. And so overtime has been budgeted into their budget. But the end result is any department that doesn't have overtime budgeted, they use compensatory time automatically. Some of our departments have actually used a combination of both. Maybe half of their staff are in a position where they can use that time, and then they have maybe some very dedicated personnel that there's nobody that could take their position, and they have overtime budgeted for that. So ultimately, it comes down to the funding of the court, how the court wants to fund. But as county government as a whole, we certainly qualify.
Well, and then what is our policy in terms of at what point we decide to make someone cash out or take the time? Because we have to cash it out on termination of employment because it's an overtime equivalent. But is there any other step?
Yes.
In there where?
In the Comptroller's office, they actually manage this a little bit more, but I'm going to, unless Cheryl just wants to jump in, 40 hours. If somebody accumulates 40 hours, we don't want to see somebody accumulating 300 hours of compensatory time and then leaving and us not being able to fund a position. So it's 40 hours.
It's 40 hours to take it or to cash it out?
After 40 hours, they are required to be paid out.
Oh. Now, is that Is that something that we do, or is that just a rule you all follow? Because I'd like to make them use it instead of paying it out.
Now, we actually, there's some guidelines, I need to study up on it again, but I actually looked at that one time because I had a department that wanted to require their employees to use comp time rather than sick and vacation. And I found out that's not legal.
You can't do that.
And so that you don't have that option of saying you have to take comp time instead of taking sick time, or you have to take comp time instead of vacation. And so there are some stipulations on when and how you can make them use it. But I mean, ultimately, you have 32 hours. I'm not going to schedule you for Friday, take comp day. And so there are some stipulations. We don't have a lot hit 40. Most of them, I believe, it's probably sheriff's office if they hit the 40. And that's also one of those budgets that they sometimes have crunch in personnel.
Well, sometimes I know they can't help it. I mean, if you need to have an officer on duty,
that's right.
That's what you do. But
that's right.
I know when I worked briefly for the federal government, I loved being able to take my comp time. I mean, it was fun. Yeah. You know, it was a nice free vacation day.
All of my employees love it.
Yeah. So I'd like to see us use it. Maybe we can explore it another time. Thank you.
J.P. Harbison.
I'm glad to see the $13,893 in a reduction. You do an excellent job in your department, and I really appreciate that. I move that we pass this budget.
I have a motion and a second. J.P. McHenry.
Thank you, Judge. I just had a quick question on comp time. Is it given at time and a half or straight time?
It is given at time and a half.
Time and a half. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. J.P. Ussery.
I'm again looking at the fax line and telephone line. You've got $1,400 there, and that did not go away for you. Is that correct?
On the fax line?
Telephone fax.
Am I looking at the wrong line? Telephone fax, landline?
My telephone fax went from 960 to 96.
Okay, am I looking at, maybe I skipped a line. Okay,
No,
I'm
it's
sorry,
not.
I'm looking at postage, I guess.
It's postage.
Okay.
And I hope I don't spend $1,400, but I did last year. I hope I don't. But I do have, I'm glad you pointed that out. I actually do have $96 still in the phone line, but I have a designated office at the sheriff's office, and they're not on this phone system yet, so I have to maintain one phone line.
Any other discussion? All in favor of Lindsay's budget, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you, Lindsay. Next we have is the Juvenile Detention Center, page 145, 146. Jenny Mack. You're recognized.
Good evening. If I could tell you the other side of the overtime issue. Several years ago, when I began work for the county, I walked in to do payroll, and there was so much comp time, I couldn't even keep up with it. Being the kind of facility we are, you have to replace somebody for the person that's not there. So we were actually costing the county more in the comp time. So we asked for overtime. We also have an in-house, we got a little creative, an in-house form that if somebody would like to reduce and go home early one day, if they had overtime that week, it has to be within that week. We allow them to do so. Their supervisor will allow them to do that if everything is covered for that day. So we continue to try to reduce the overtime in that matter. Most of our overtime comes with transports or lack of staff. So it's pretty basic for us. You can see in the budget, the only place that we increased was food, and we knew that I would do that last year. We're going to be 10,000 short this year, so I just added 10,000 to that because we're at 98% spent already, and so we won't make it the 2.5 months we have left.
J.P. Lundstrom.
I'd just like for you to talk to us about other professional services again. I'm always leery of that line item.
Okay. Our other professional services is we have to pay a nurse. We have to have a contract with a nurse. He's not at our facility, but we have to contract with him. That's a mandate. He's paid $795.91 per pay period. We also pay a portion of the teachers' salaries that is not paid by the state grant to be at JDC. So the grant has a formula of how many beds that we have, and they will pay up to a portion of their salaries, and then the county picks up the rest.
Well, I just know, you go from 4,800 to 40,000, that's a considerable increase in 20.
No, which line? I can't find the number.
15.
Line item 3009, but
3009. No, we had 40 last year as well.
40 last year.
Oh, the year before? Okay. The
18.
teachers that we had all got their masters. So their salaries went boom.
why don't we go back and hire some
Well,
that don't have
we
their master's?
actually, I haven't received the grant yet, because actually Fayetteville receives it, Mr. Lundstrom, and we haven't gotten it yet, and it will be a little less this year because we do have new teachers. 2 teachers, though, have been within the system for 28, 30 years, so they're going to be pretty up there, but we have a younger teacher that won't be in that high salary bracket, so.
I love trying to help these kids and what have you. I sometimes think some of these parents ought to be in jail instead of the kids.
Our judge puts
Because,
them in jail.
That's a family. That's really the family's job to educate children, not ours. But, I appreciate what you're talking about, and I appreciate you filling us in on where that money's going. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Deputy Lloyd.
Thank you, Judge. I know you said that the food was 10,000 more. What do you spend, what do you buy food for? Is it
Kids.
the
The
kids that are
kids
in
eat 'em.
there?
Yes, ma'am.
But I mean, is it for special, like after schools and programs or anything like that, or is just
No,
what-
it's just breakfast, lunch, snacks, and
Okay,
dinner.
just that.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
All righty, thank you.
JP Madison.
I just want to say I understand that your overtime issues are unique. When I generally refer to the sheriff's office as sort of, I shouldn't put you in there, but I view you all as having the same concern. So I didn't want you to think I was overlooking
No, I
that.
just wanted to give the other side of the coin.
No, I mean, I realize if you're these safety situations where, you have to have people monitoring folks, you don't have a choice. So I get it. But I think you all are unique in that respect. There's some county offices that don't have quite that demand. So I just wanted to comment on that, and I would move to pass the budget.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor of Jeannie Mac's budget, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
ma'am. Next, we have our county attorney, 109 and 110.
Thank you, Judge, members of the court. Before I begin, if you'll take a look at my line item 3090, you'll notice that it reflects $9,020. I erroneously thought that I was going to have to buy a newest subscription to LexisNexis, which is $220 or $210 a month. Turns out that I'm not going to have to do that. LexisNexis is the legal research website software that I use. Not going to have to do that. Going to be able to get that through the law library. So if you'll subtract from mine, line 3090, $2,510, that line should be, I think, $6,510, which is $40 more than last year, and I had a really good reason for asking you for $40 more, and I can't remember what it is now. The other, that should leave my total, and I'm one of the few people coming up asking for more money. That should leave my total increase, I believe, from last year at $1,527. A couple notes on that. When George prepared my budget last year, he did not request anything for mileage or meals and lodging. I've made 4 trips on county business to Little Rock this year. 3 of them are overnight. One of them was a down and back. No, 2 of them were down and back. I take that back. 2 overnights, 2 down and back. 2 in my vehicle, 2 in county transportation, and then I made a trip to Kansas City on a county dime or for county business. I anticipate that being roughly the same next year, which is why I asked for the travel or the mileage and the meals and lodging. I'm already over budget this year on postage, so I asked for $50 more on postage than I asked for last year. And let's see. The Training education, $350 I paid for, I want to pay for registration to the Arkansas Bar Association's summer meeting in Hot Springs. I went this year, traveled, I paid the gas and the meals and refreshments out of my pocket, but asked the county to pay the registration fee for the conference. And that's what I'm asking for.
J.P. Cochran?
Thank you, Judge. Because you read ordinances so well, I've moved to pass your budget.
Second. I have a motion and a second. J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Madam Judge. I just had a question. I thought that you had hired a legal assistant to work in your office. Is that reflected in another budget?
If you're referring to Ms. Miller, she replaced, she happens to be a licensed attorney, but she is, she comes out of Renee's budget. Grants, because her salary comes out of the grants budget. So,
she works on grants?
Well, she is, there's a long and tortured history to that position, and I will give you the Cliffs Notes version. Renee, before she became the grants administrator, George hired her 8-ish years ago when George was the county attorney, simply to be the legal assistant. As the grants administrator began to handle utilities coordination for the county at large, basically the decentralized sewer systems that we've had a lot of discussion about, there was somebody working with Wayne Blankenship, Rhonda Hulse, who did that job and was also doing the job for as the assistant grants administrator. So it was purely Wayne Blankenship's assistant. As time went on, they determined Rhonda left. Wayne still needed that position filled. It was a way to get the legal assistant more money. So they divide time. Laney divides time, and Renee divided time between me, and it's mostly me, and the grants administration office. And that's it's paid out of grants administration instead of me. It's about a 2-grade jump for her to do both jobs in pay.
So Renee was primarily doing work to assist the county attorney rather than the grants administrator, but yet moved into the grants administrator position.
When Wayne retired,
I'm aware of that.
She got promoted.
But it sounds like her training background was more in being the assistant for but that's another story. That's all I needed to know. That's all I need to know. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Zaga. Now we're at financial management, page 99 to 100.
Okay, if you'll look at page 307, it shows the services and what our office does, the different areas. We have the payroll, the accounts payable, purchasing, and the accounting side. And you can see some of the numbers, the stats of kind of what we deal with. So the other night, my good idea wasn't such a good idea. Decided we needed 2 budgets, so I think Carly's passed out 2 individual budgets, one for financial management and one for general services. So there's one in the book that's got them combined into one, and then we have 2 separate ones. So I'm not sure how y'all want to discuss this, so if you have any questions, I'm not sure where to start with, so.
How many employees?
We have Teresa who does payroll, and Ashley is backup for that. Of course, Ashley's also assistant comptroller. We have 2 in AP, Ping and Junie. We have 2 in purchasing, Alicia and Rhonda. And then Jennifer Hinkle, who is actually in buildings and grounds, probably spends maybe 80% of her time actually helping us, like pay bills or whatever, wherever she's needed. She's kind of a rover for us, and then the comptroller position. So there's a total of 7 actually in the department. But, yeah.
Can we make sure everybody's looking at the right one? Because they're not labeled, and I think we're supposed to be, there were 2 pages stapled together at our desk tonight, and I think it's the second page of that. Is that right? Because it doesn't have a date on it, so I don't, is the total 327,605?
That's the financial management, and then the general services is there. There's 2 of them.
Okay.
There should be 2 of them there.
There are. Which one are we on right now?
Whichever one you want to discuss.
Okay,
I'm not
you're
sure.
handling both of them. Is that? Start with the top.
Because the way I had it originally was on page 99 and 100, I had them combined.
Right.
And so if you want to discuss them separately or as one, whatever you guys
Okay,
want,
and
I'm
then,
happy.
so, I think I figured this out before, but I always forget it a year later. Purchasing is general services, because it says purchasing on our agenda, but it says general services on the top of the budget, so that's why I couldn't find purchasing on the table of contents. Okay. Okay, let me take a minute and make sure I know what I'm looking at. Thank you.
Yes, J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Madam Judge. I just thought I'd ask a question to fill in this gap here a minute. Now I think I'm on the wrong one. Well, on one of these, I've seen it in several budgets. It says longevity. Here it is. It's in the financial management. 1999. What is longevity? You get a reward if you survive?
Eva requested that to be on the budget. She can explain it.
So we have a policy, we looked at it not long ago, where county employees get a certain amount of money for the years of service. And previously, that had not been budgeted. And we were coming back after the budget and correcting it. And I felt like it should be in the budget. And so last year, we went back and added it in. This will be the first full year with it there. So it's the county's reward for longevity. And it's per county policy.
Okay, that explains why it's gone up then. Thank you.
J.P. Maxwell.
Thank you, Judge. I just have a question for, I guess, my education, but on line 3104, miscellaneous refunds. Looks like in 2015, we had a sizable change. I'm just curious as to kind of what all goes along with that miscellaneous refund.
That $1 million that's where the $1 million is. We're repaying the state.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions for Cheryl? Yes, J.P. Lloyd.
On the purchasing the general services, dues and membership up 7,604 from 500?
Yes, that's the Northwest Arkansas Economic Development District. Dues went up. in
Wow.
Harrison.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, J.P. Madison.
Do we have to belong to that? What is
But
it?
Steve, on that, I think we're automatically a member of it.
Oh,
It's the one
nice.
in Harrison.
Well, I was kind of, I have more questions about the general services budget. But Ms. Bollinger, first, on your computer IT equipment, you've gone up a little bit. Do you have plans to buy something new?
Well, $1,000 wouldn't replace a computer, so I just put in what it would take if we had to replace one.
Okay.
We're trying to stay current, and I know this year we've replaced, we've changed the operating system. They've been trying to do mine for a few weeks. I keep saying, wait till next week, wait till next week. She caught me today in the elevator. I said, okay, Friday. I have meetings Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. Can you do it Friday? So Friday, they're going to update mine, but I think I'm the last one in the department. So we try to keep those updated, but every once in a while, a computer will crash or.
Okay. Any chance you could renegotiate your copier lease?
Yes, we did. Actually, we did as well, and so the cost went down. The thing is, I don't know what the cost is going to be next year.
Okay.
So, but we always look at that and try to get that down. One thing I would like to point out, other professional services seems to come up a lot in here, and no one seems to ever understand exactly what that is. What that means, it's a professional service that the state did not put a special code to. If you look at the financial management, under 3001, it's got accounting and auditing. That's a professional service, but they pull that one out separate. 3003 computer services. That's a professional service. Anything that they deem that they didn't give a name to, then it's just other professional services. So in this case, accounting and auditing is what we pay for the federal audits. This year so far, we've paid the $97.50 thing next year that I'm not sure what's going to happen on that, and I haven't gotten a number from Renee yet for sure. If you look back in 2013, we paid $16,700, but the reason I put $15,000 in this year is because we're actually going to have 2 federal audits. They'll do it at one time, but apparently the rules have changed about the way they do the federal audit, and so they have to do they'll be doing it all at the same time, but one goes under one set of rules and the others will go under other sets of rules. It depends on when they were granted. So I think it's all moving over, and next year that should phase them all out, because I think it was anything that was granted before October 1st of 2014. And as those close out, then that will all change on the new ones.
On the purchasing budget, I was curious about my understanding about the reorganization of that department is we still have someone who functions sort of, I don't want this to be confusing, but as the head of that, but they're no longer a salaried director. They're an hourly employee that reports to you. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So the organization of it in terms of head count is the same. Mm-hmm. So explain to me the jump in the general supplies category, because
in general supplies, if you'll look, they spent $1,190 in 6 months. So I was looking at that whenever I changed that. And a lot of supplies will end up being purchased like in November, right before we shut off purchases for the year, because we have to buy enough supplies to last through the end of the year and get us through January. So,
because historically, if you look at it's hard to look at a partial year and know what that means. It's never been over $2,000. So I had a question about that. And then on the computer IT equipment, I guess your answer is the same, that you budgeted $2,400 to actually cover the cost of a computer. So speaking of other professional services, that's a new item on this budget. What is that for?
It was there last year. Basically,
it's not been used.
It's not been used. Basically, all that is general services covers like for a lot of different departments. Just like if there's something comes up that the county needs to do and it really doesn't fit anywhere, it would go under general services, and so like that's where the $100,000 got paid back to, and so that's kind of just in their what if scenario. It's not in there for any reason. It could easily be taken out, but it may be something that we'd have to come back and ask. I don't know.
And then on the cell phone line item, if we don't have any management employees in that department, I'm curious why we have somebody with a cell phone. And I only say that because I'm concerned about giving hourly employees cell phones for fear that they're working off the clock.
Right. And no, as far as I know, no hourly employee has one because for that reason.
Okay.
And the reason I put that in there was because I wasn't sure where you were going with these budgets. I knew you wanted the budgets separate. I didn't know if the department's going to be separated or what. So I put that in there because that would be one of the responsibilities that department head would have to have. They would have to have a cell phone. And the reason they have to have a cell phone is because of the purchasing cards. Because if someone's out of town and they're not able to check out of their hotel because their limit was set at $500 and it was $600 to check out, the hotel will not let you check out using that card.
Will that call come to you now, or will it go to the hourly employee?
It comes to me now, but it would go to the department head if those departments are separated. All that responsibility comes to me now. It used to be there.
Okay, so if the status quo remains, you won't need this phone expense.
Exactly. That'd definitely be taken out because we don't give an hourly employee.
Okay. Well, that was the reason I asked the question. Yeah. And then I know he'll poke me if I don't ask this, but the software support maintenance agreement of $15,000. What is that for?
It's SunGuard.
Oh, SunGuard. Because it seems how does it fluctuate that much year to year? 15, 9, 10, and then perhaps 20 last year or this year.
Well, the maintenance, the service call on it goes up every year. I know this year we just for the maintenance, the maintenance agree, whatever it's called. Okay, it was like 28,000 this year, just for that, not including the other things that we've had to have asked them to do, or, like write reports or something. That would be another savings that eventually, I'm hoping that, we get enough people in IT that they can do our software support for us. If they'd have time to write a program and support it, it would be a cost saving overall to the county.
Well, I'd move to pass the general services budget minus the $800 for the 3,022 cell phone line item.
Yes,
She's taking the 800.
And I've got a motion, I've got a second, but I'm going to go ahead. J.P. Lloyd.
Thank you, Judge. I had the same concerns on that, the 2001 line. On the general supplies, the highest you'd ever been was in 2013 with almost $2,000. Is there a need that it has to be $2,500? You were saying something about they've already spent, correct me if I'm wrong, $1,190, right?
For 6 months.
For 6 months.
Mm-hmm. And so when I looked at that, I'm thinking, they'll probably spend that much for the next 6 months.
Oh, okay. I was thinking 10 months. I was thinking we were in October.
Yeah, that could be reduced. We can reduce it. It wouldn't be a problem. We may have to come back, but if you want, we can certainly reduce it. Now would be a good time to, if you're going to.
Do I make a motion on that? Do I make a motion on that?
You have to amend it. Because
Go
you made
ahead.
a motion.
Exactly. I was about to say, Justice Lloyd, if Justice, and it is the same budget you're talking about, is that
Right,
right?
correct.
If Justice Madison takes it as a friendly amendment, you won't have to get a second, and it'll modify her original motion.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we do the general supplies 2,000. Let's do the. Thank you.
So now I've got several, okay. J.P. Lundstrom.
2,000 instead of 2,500.
Well, I was going to make a motion that we just pass this budget, because when I checked her 2016 request with 2014, she's down $16,000 on one, and she's up $4,000 on the other. Well, since we separate them. I'm looking at 2014 actual expenditures.
The one's up 2,500 and the other's down 2,000. So it's about even out.
Well, but the common sense of this thing is it's actually a slightly reduced budget.
Yeah.
And I don't, a cell phone and this and that and other, $1,000 on one line item doesn't make that much difference to me, quite frankly. If we were talking about big items, that'd be different. And little items add up into big items. I'm always saying that. But comparing her 2016 request to 2014 combined, she's lower considerably. I'm talking about financial management and general services combined. That's where they were.
Yeah.
So you add them together, she's reduced her budget by $10,000-$12,000. So, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead. J.P. Maxwell.
Thank you, Madam Judge. I know the other night when we discussed having these as two separate budgets, it seemed like there was a lot of more questions and real clarification. Can you just kind of point where the synergy would be of combining those two departments and those two budgets? Just if there were cost savings that we're missing by not having those combined, could you kind of point that out?
It's possible, and that was the thing I said the other night. I'm not sure exactly what all the cost savings could be because they have not been combined. So purchasing we still buy supplies out of purchasing for purchasing, and we buy supplies for the comptroller's department out of the comptroller's budget. If those are, because one of the girls said the other day, oh, I need to move all that stuff over there. And, well, yeah, if they do, then they may have some stuff that they already have that we use that they're not using or may not use much of that we wouldn't have to buy. I don't know. I honestly could not tell you what the savings would be. Right now, like we share a copier. So on the lease of the copier, we pay, we split that cost already. And then we have I guess, a security on it where whoever uses it has to actually log into it, so we know if there's any overages where that goes. So the only thing it would save is time for our payroll department, because they're not going to have that separate department to track and payroll. HR won't have to have a separate department to track and payroll. I won't have like 2 timesheets to fill out for 2 departments. I won't have to like look at everything and make sure that we put it in 2 separate budgets, in 2 separate line items. It would save AP a ton of work because they have to do all that and then track sales tax on all that. So it was just a time saver, which to me would be a money saver, but you know, it's workable either way, whatever.
Thank you.
JP Essery.
Thank you. Just for clarification, there's $7,000 more here than there was in your original one. And from the discussion tonight, I gathered that that's really, as you've gone back through and you looked at it, you saw things that were overlooked. So this is actually, you're increasing what you originally came to us with. I just want to make sure I understand that.
Right, that's true. And as I went back and looked at it, and I was thinking of purchasing as a separate department, I was looking at more like, okay, they're going to need more of this, and you know, there's things that we won't combine that they will still need. You know, we'll need to keep separate since it's a separate budget.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
JP Lloyd.
Never mind, Judge.
Okay, we got
Sorry.
a motion, and we've got JP Bowman.
Thank you, Judge. Cheryl, one of the first things I thought about was the fact that we had the head of the department before, salary is not included here. I was surprised that the budget didn't go down by a similar amount to her salary.
Say that again.
Well, we had the head of the purchasing department, and since there's no head of the purchasing department and nobody replacing that salary, that the total budget would have gone down something similar to the total compensation package for the manager.
Yeah, it did. If you'll look on the back, it's got the salary for the purchasing administrator.
On the back.
And so it was a few thousand, I think there was a few $1,000s difference between that salary and the one that the purchasing director was making. I'd have to go back and look for sure.
So basically what you're saying is the person that replaced those responsibilities, or the mechanics of the situation, salary is $2,000 less than the manager's salary was?
I would have to go back and look. Do you have last year's back?
Oh, okay, I got you. Okay.
Are you, okay, JP Bowman?
Thank you. I'm done.
JP Patterson.
Thank you, Judge. I had a question on the dues and memberships for running in mid 24, 25, 26,000 there for 3 years. And this year we had budgeted for $500. We spent about $3,400, but we're budgeting $7,600 next year.
That's
what did we do to go from 25,000 down to 500?
I believe that was done whenever you restructured the budget. Once it was approved, and you remember it was restructured, and it was taken to 500 from, the request last year was 4,000, and it was reduced to 500 by the Quorum Court after the budgets had already been reviewed.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we've got a motion, we've got a friendly amendment. Any other discussion?
Judge, can I?
Would you please?
Justice Madison, you didn't move to approve both budgets. You just one,
Yeah, I
right?
only did the general services
That's what
because
I
I was
thought.
making a change. I thought it'd keep it simpler
Right.
since we're voice voting.
I wanted to make sure, in case anybody asked me, that I understood what the motion was.
But I'll restate it. It's the 1,000 or 118 general services budget to reduce the 3022 cell phone line item to 0, and per JP Lloyd, reduce the 2001 general supplies to 2,000.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, now that was taking care of general services. Let's proceed on to the financial part. I think most of the questions have been asked, but let's go with JP.
I'd move to pass it as proposed.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. The next one we have is purchasing,
Oh, you did that already.
and
We
that was all
already done that.
included with financial management. Okay, do we have any citizens' comments? Yes, but that's okay.
You are. I am a citizen, but I don't have a citizen comment. Looking at the meeting schedule, I don't know how many of you all are planning to go, but on October 29th, that Thursday, there is a fundraiser for the animal shelter sponsored by the Animal League. And I know some of us are members of the Animal League, and I had already bought my tickets. And so I would actually make a motion that we move that meeting so that we can go and support our animal shelter and a fundraiser that the Animal League's having. It's called 50 Shades of Stray. And I would love to see all of us there supporting the shelter instead of being in a budget meeting.
Where is it?
Oh, where is it? Oh, it's at Pratt Place Barn.
That's what I was thinking, okay. Karen, do you have a problem?
I believe we have Blair scheduled for that night. I'll just have to see if he can come like the following week. We'll look at the schedule.
She will check the agenda, and then she'll let everyone know. I know I have, and I don't know if I announced, but the 22nd, we will not be meeting because of your Lincoln Day dinner. I have postponed that for that day, so you can participate in that.
And we appreciate that.
And I just have to say, I like the 2 meetings per week a whole lot better than the 3 meetings per week. Just, I think it's a lot for everybody involved. And you sound better at least, so at least you're getting well, but I think it sort of wears on us if we're doing 3 in a week. But I would make that motion with respect to the 29th.
Okay, J.P. Lundstrom?
I told him to check with Miss Beeks, but the security guard out there, somebody told him that we were canceling the 20th meeting. And I told him, no, it's the 22nd. So we need to make sure they are aware of that.
Karen will take care of him.
Yeah, Harley talks to them all the time.
I've already talked to him. It was a misunderstanding. He thought I said 20th instead of 22nd. So,
Thank you,
yes,
Carly.
it's fixed.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Wait, you didn't vote on your motion to
Okay.
move the 29th to an
Okay.
indefinite date.
Oh, I thought we decided to let Karen check it. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Karen, if you'll move that date and let everyone know. Thank you. Now a motion to adjourn. And
Make a motion,
second.
we adjourn.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, welcome to another edition of Green Your Life. I'm your host, Christina Jones, and today I'd like to talk to you about the importance and benefits of changing your home air filter. According to the EPA, the air in our homes can be up to 5 times more polluted than the air outdoors, and the average American spends up to 90% of their time indoors. Given these statistics, making sure the air in your home is clean is important for your health, and it is also important for the life of your heat and air system. By changing your air filters on a regular basis, you can see a lot of benefits. A clean filter can reduce the symptoms of allergies and asthma by removing some of the dust, mold, pollen, and pet dander from the air as it circulates through the house. A clean filter will also help your system run more efficiently by allowing air to flow through freely. A dirty filter makes your heat and air system work harder, using more electricity and making it wear out faster. So, how do you know when to change your air filter? Although it can vary from home to home, every 30 days is a good rule of thumb. According to Energy Star, dirty filters are a significant cause of higher energy usage and early failure for heat and air systems. By taking the time to change your filter on a regular basis, you can save some money, reduce your carbon footprint, and breathe a little easier. For Green Your Life, I'm Christina Jones.
Invasive plants can aggressively compete with native plants and dominate a landscape. They alter habitats by decreasing available light and depleting soil moisture and nutrients. Some invasive plants can even increase the severity and frequency of wildfires.
Many invasive plants, like bush honeysuckle, provide fewer benefits